शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यश्छन्दसा मृषभो विश्वरूपः छन्दोभ्योऽध्यमृतात् सम्बभूव समेन्द्रो मेधया आस्पृणोतु अमृतस्य देवधारणो भूयासं शरीरं मे विचर्षणं जिह्वा मे मधुमत्तमा कर्णाभ्यां भूरिविश्रुवं ब्रह्मणः कोशोऽसि मेधया पिहितः श्रुतं मे गोपाय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिः पृष्ठं गिरेरिव ऊर्ध्वपवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमितमस्मि द्रविणगुंसवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कोर्वेदानुवचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः आप्यायन्तु मम अङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुः श्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्म उपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्यां मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मा ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः वाङ् मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविराविर्म एधि वेदस्य मानीस्थः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेनादितेन अहोरात्रान् सन्दधामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारमवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं नो अपि वातयमनः ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येम अक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यो ब्रह्माण्डं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तगुंहदेवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim Cha Tatputra Parasharam Cha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindramathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padmapadam Cha Hastamalakam Cha Shishyam Tam Totakam Vartikakaramanyānasmat Gurūn Santatamanatosmi. Om Vishwam Darpana Dishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bhairivotbhutam Yatha Nidraya Yat Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanamevadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Pītasyantarivānkuro Jagadidam Prāṅ Nirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaichitriya Chitrikritam Maya Vivajambhayat Vijrambhayatyapi Maha Yogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Yasyaiva Spuranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthakam Bhasate Sakshat Tattvamasiti Vedavachasa Yo Bodhayatyashritan Yat Sakshat Karanat Bhavenna Punaravrittirbhavambo Nidhau Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Nana Chidrghatodharasthita Mahadipa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuradhikarana Dvara Bahispandate Janamiti Tameva Bhantam Anubhatye Tat Samastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Deham Pranamapi Indriyanapi Chalam Buddhim Cha Shunyam Viduhu Stri Balanda Jadopamastwamiti Branta Bhrisham Vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpitamaha Vyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. Okay, so we will continue with the analysis of the Brahma Sutras after a short interval of looking at the Tatastha Lakshana and Swarupa Lakshana of Ishvara. And we'll expand on that as time goes on, but let's continue on with the study of the Brahma Sutra. So let's just chant the first two verses and then we will go from there. Athato Brahma Jigyasa Athato Brahma Jigyasa Janmadyasya Yataha Janmadyasya Yataha. Okay. So in going over the word meanings of the second sutra, because that's the sequence we are following, what we are doing is that we will take a general analysis of each sutra. Right now we are committed to only 4. We are doing the second of the 4. After doing a general introduction to the sutra, then we take up the word analysis, word by word analysis by Adi Shankara based on his Bhashya. So that's the second stage. And the third one is we do a conclusion of what have we learned, especially the detailed analysis of the word, how does that improve our understanding, and also to retain the overall sense as we go from the first the to this sutra to the next sutra. So that's the sequence we are following. So we have concluded the word analysis of the second sutra. But here, before we do the conclusion, Adi Shankara has discussed two other important points in relation to the second sutra. He has, for very good reason, decided to investigate a couple of important points with respect to the second sutra. And as it often happens, this is very traditional and very a method for revealing the Shastra. Purva Paksha is brought in. And so this is something that you should be very conversant with by now, that we do not shy away from looking at others' viewpoint that differs from Vedanta. We don't shy away from it, but at the same time, we incorporate those viewpoints as part of our teaching. And so you don't need to really study a lot about the others. You can if you want to, but the very doubts that are taken up and answered as part of the study itself takes care of different kinds of Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha means one which has a different view of things. It's called Purva Paksha. And then the Siddhanta means, no, this is not proper. Let us see the defects of those thinking. And the proper thing to do is to look at it this way. This is called Siddhanta. So here, Adi Shankara has decided to introduce a Purva Paksha in order to clarify certain points that we should be very clear about. This is the reason for it. Okay. So as we've seen, the Purva Paksha says, this second verse of the Brahma Sutra, which you say is only the Lakshana Sutra. Remember, we saw that there are two things for us to identify. So, Lakshana Pramanabhyam Artha Siddhi. In order for you to ascertain something, you have to know what that thing is. What are you looking for? And how do you know that? This is called Lakshana and Pramana. So here the Vedantic view is that the second sutra, Janmadhyasya Yataha, is only the Lakshana Sutra. It is not a Pramana Sutra. So Adi Shankara brings up a viewpoint, Purva Paksha, and says, how come you say that? Because to me, the way you are looking at Ishvara, Brahman, is that it has elements of both Lakshana and Pramana. The whole thing can be figured out. Through how? Through Anumanam, through reasoning. And so therefore you don't need really the Shastra. You don't need Shastra. Shastra means Shruti, means that you have to see the wisdom of the Shruti. You have to cite it. Why? Why do you have to do that? I can tell you this is interesting, because when I went to study with Swami Dayanandji at Piercy, and he started teaching, very often he would say, the Shruti says this, the reference to this is from Chandogya, this is what Bhagavad Gita says, and so on. That's a very often part and parcel of the teaching. And I used to wonder, I think the way Swamiji is explaining things is clear enough. Why do we have to go back to such an often reference to the Shruti. I remember this so well in my thinking. And I don't know if I took that up in the satsang. It's very possible I may have asked that question. And possibly Swamiji may have replied to me. I'm not sure about that dialogue, but inside my mind, I had exactly the same question. And it took me a while, perhaps even after the PRC course ended and I started doing Mananam and so on, and then more study, I realized that it is very important. And so this is, and just like we are doing on the Kenopanishad, he says, we have heard people say this. Vyacha chakshire. And so this is an important thing where you don't say, I know Brahman. As we know, we are going through this analysis on in Kenopanishad, a very important analysis, which we are right in the middle of that, and we will be taking it up on Tuesday. It is not proper to say, I know Brahman, because that is not, that means that you are confused. Really? If I say isn't that what we are trying to do, that I should know Brahman? Yes, but it is not proper to express it that way. That means there is some problem. Excuse me. So then what? The proper thing is to say, this is what Shruti has said. And from your conduct of the life, from your expression of the thing, you are sincerely saying that wisdom is mine. It is not the book's wisdom that is now incorporated in me. But the way you say that is, this is what we have heard. So the Shruti has to be done again and again. So here the Purva Paksha says, no. You can do it on your own because it makes sense. And let me tell you how it makes sense. So, so he's going to give us Anumana. We'll go into this. But before we do that, Swami Paramarthananda had pointed out very nicely that Shankara's answer, Siddhanti's answer to this Purva Paksha takes two forms. One form is a very simple, basic statement. It doesn't have a lot of depth in it in terms of your logic or anything, but it is nevertheless just as true. What is that first one? He says the Brahma Sutra is not, it is called Vedanta Sutra. It is not Sankhya Sutra, it is not Bauddha Sutra, it is not called Jaina Sutra. So what's the difference between them? Because if you have Sankhya Sutra, there are different, Karmakandins have their own sutras and so on. Jaimini sutras. They are based on their own reasoning. And they are very smart people, with a lot of in-depth analysis of things. So they can express it the way they want to do it, which you and I cannot. So they are not fools. They are very, very sharp people. But their entire analysis is based on the way they think of it. Vedanta Sutra is not like that. So, as we have discussed it before also, it is worth repeating that both, not only Vyasacharya ji and Shankaracharya, who are the authors of and the interpreters of Brahma Sutra, they are born into the study of Shastra. They did not start the study of Shastra. It is not their brainchild. It is really the brainchild of Ishvara, and they simply express their appreciation of the truth of it. So that's why So this is the first point, that Brahma Sutra is called Vedanta Sutra. So really every point is an interpretation of the various Upanishads and Vakyas and so on. It is not based on their own reasoning. So this is another important point. So you may start a religious thought because you are very sharp and you found out some insights. Very good. But we are not like that. We follow the Shastra. So does this mean that you are not logical? That you don't think on independently? That point will be brought up. No, we don't accept that also. But what we accept is that the logic that you should use, the insight that you should have, should be consistent with what the Shruti is saying. There's no need to go against the Shruti because the Shruti is all-knowing. Ishvara is all-knowing. He's the creator of the whole thing. So he's not born into it. Well, anyway, so this is the point that he made. Now let's go to the second point, which is more important and more interesting. So the Purva Pakshi says, listen, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why we don't need the Shastra to tell us. We can figure it out on their own. So we say, really? How? He says, okay, let me give you 3 pieces of logical statements. 3 logical statements, not 3 pieces. 3 logical statements. Anumanam. What is the first one? So let's look at each one of them. And there will be an answer to all of them. The first Anumanam is Jagat Sakartrakam Karyatvat Ghatavat. This is Sanskritam. Again, Jagat Sakartrakam Karyatvat Ghatavat. What does it mean? This Jagat means that this creation that we see in front of us, all the sets of experiences that we have, good and bad, night and day, all of those experiences called Jagat. Jayate Gacchati iti Jagat. One that is born, as soon as it is born, it is moving, it's dying. So this kind of like a kaleidoscope like thing is called Jagat. That's our experience. That's what our life is, everyone's life. So that Jagat Sakartrakam means it is created. Karta saha vartate iti sakartrakam. One which is done by someone. Karyatvat ghatavat. Ghatavat means the one just like a pot a clay pot, clay cup if you may. Just like a clay cup is made by someone. It is the karya, it is the result of something. And similarly, the Jagat is a creation. Therefore, it must have a creator. Okay, so this is Anumana number 1. Okay, got it? Okay. Second one is Jagat Karta Ishvaraha Jiva Bhinnatve Sati Sheshanatvat. This is the Sanskritam for it. He says the second one is, so the first one was what? Jagat Sakartrakam Karyatva Ghatavat. We saw that. Second one is Jagat Karta Ishvaraha Jiva Bhinnatve Sati Sheshanatvat. What does that mean? It means that the Jagat is the creator of this Jagat, the entire cosmos is Ishvara. How? He says it is different from you and I. Jiva cannot create this Ishvara. It's pretty obvious because we have limited knowledge, cannot create the whole thing. Mountains and sun and all kinds of things, we cannot create it. So somebody else must have created it, not the Jiva. So it's called Jiva Bhinnatve Sati. Being bhinna means different from a jiva, that being the truth, sati saptami, that being the case, sheshanatvat. Sheshanatvat means only none of the jivas can do it individually or collectively for that matter. We have governments. Governments can't create. We have societies. So even the collection of jivas cannot create. Single jivas also cannot create. So it must be someone who is away from us. And why do you say that? Because the creator must be a conscious person. This is what the Purva Paksha is saying, and we have to really look at each one of them. So he says that first of all it's a creation and therefore there must be a creator. Secondly, the creator is not you and I but someone who is all-knowing, Ishvara, because there has to be a conscious person who does it all. So not a jiva. So this is Anumana number 2. Okay? Anumana number 3. Ishvaraha sarvagyaha sarvakartritvat vyatirekena kulalavat. This is the thing. Third one is Ishvaraha sarvagyaha sarvakartritvat vyatirekena kulalavat. So the third Anumana, third reasoning is that not only is it Ishvara who is different from Jiva. The second one is that there is someone other than a Jiva that does it. The third one gives further definition that Ishvara is Sarvagyaha. He knows everything. Vyatirekena kulalavat. Vyatirekena means unlike. Unlike a pot maker means a jiva. A pot maker only knows how to make pots. He doesn't know how to make computers. And so his knowledge is very limited. Unlike that, Ishvara is Sarvagya. So now the Purva Paksha rests. It says, okay, my case is now like presenting to a court that my case is now full because Ishvara is this is a creation. Somebody must have done it. You and I could not have created it. Somebody other than we created it. And this other one, Ishvara, is all-knowing. Everything is known. And so this is the Ishvara. Therefore, both Lakshana and Pramana are obvious in this statement. Because you yourself said that the one which is the Tatastha Lakshana of the second sutra, it means a Tatastha Lakshana, because from which everything emanates, in which everything stays, and back into which everything goes back. And one who is independent of that, that is what you are saying. And we agree with that. But I don't understand why do we need to go to Shastra? Because we can figure it out. It's very obvious. So now this is the Purva Paksha. So now the Siddhanta starts. And the Siddhanta is, well, this is technical, so let's follow that very well. So he says, okay, all anumanams has a basis of pratyaksha pramanam, right? All anumanam, all inferences have the basis of what is called vyapti jnanam. Vyapti jnanam means one which is proven by your known experience. So like for examples, you say, there is a fire in the forest. You don't see the fire, you see the smoke. So how can you make a statement there is a fire in the mountain? Because wherever there is a smoke, there must be fire. So this is what is called vyapti jnanam. And there's no exceptions. You cannot have sometimes black smoke that can come out of no fire. White smoke can come out without fire, just the heat. But black smoke cannot come without the fire. No exceptions. So that means that you must have a vyapti jnanam for the anumanam. Right? Okay. That means that it must hold good with no exceptions. All right. Now, it is true that for things that you can see, like a clay cup, or like this sophisticated Android phone. Let's look at the phone. The phone is something, this very sophisticated thing, really is a marvelous instrument now. I think what this is, is just amazing what can be done through this. You don't even need a computer anymore. So this kind of a sophistication thing, it has been made by someone. See, it has been made by someone because we can use the same vyapti jnanam. So you cannot say that one day I saw this phone I was just walking on the beach and I picked it up and there was sound coming from it and so on, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was created or not. It's just a very natural thing. You can't say that. It means that something very sophisticated, you see that there is a creator for that. Now, we ask you, all the natural things that you see in the world, a mountain, the river, the sun and the moon and the gravitational forces and the weather and floods and all those natural things, there is no vyapti jnanam for it. Because for you to make an inference that there is a karta, there must be a physical evidence. I saw Parameshwara making it. Therefore, it must be made by Parameshwara. See, this is important. You cannot have anumanam without vyapti jnanam. And you can have vyapti jnanam only for artificial things like the Android phone. But you don't have the vyapti jnanam for natural things. So he says, well, I know I don't have a vyapti jnanam, but I can infer. And so there must be something else that must have been done. Well, you are violating your own principles of anumanam. So, strictly speaking, you cannot do it. You cannot do it. It's not possible. So what it means is to inform that the creator cannot be perceptually proven. This is a technical analysis, but we should be ready to think about that. That if you are saying that we can figure it all out, you cannot figure it all out because your anumanam is not technically pure. Okay? We follow the same reasoning for the second anumanam. Second anumanam is Jagat Karta Ishvaraha Chetanatvat. Because he's only a conscious person can create, which is our experience also. You cannot, a non-conscious person cannot create. Only a conscious person can create. Okay? So now we say that a conscious person must be Ishvara because Jiva cannot do it. We follow exactly the same reason. You cannot perceptually prove that there is Ishvara. You're just assuming it. We're not talking about assumption. You can assume anything. But you cannot base a logical statement on non-perceptibility. You have not seen Ishvara creating the whole thing. You can see individuals creating phones and stuff like this. But you cannot see this conscious person who's creating it. So this vyapti doesn't hold. So you cannot say that it was done by the Ishvara. No, you cannot do that. Now let's go to the third anumanam. Ishvaraha sarvagyaha sarvakartritvat vyatirekena kulalavat. We saw this. So to negate this, Adi Shankara says we must know an axiom of the Nayayika. Nayayika is the Purva Paksha here, the one which relies on Nyaya. And we have said that the way to look at that is science. Science is based on reasoning, repeatability, provability, and so on. Only then they can say, yes, something exists. So, we must know an axiom of the Nayayikas. What is the Nayayika's axiom? He says that every knowledge is born from the mind. So in the case of the Android phone or the iPhone, Apple phone, it is born from the minds of some very sharp people who kind of figured out, I think we can do this. This is how we should do this, that's etc. It's all based on the mind. Okay? So now, this is the axiom of the Nayayikas. Then the Nayayika says that Ishvara doesn't have a mind. Ashiriratvat. It has just pure consciousness, but it doesn't have the mind. So now we have a conflict within the Nayayika itself. You are not being honest enough. Why? Because you are assuming that your anumanam is pure, because it should apply based on what your basic axiom is, that it must have a mind. But then you say, well, Ishvara doesn't have a mind, but it's okay. I think we can just assume. We're not talking about assumptions. Assumptions have to be proven. When you say, let us assume, this is what happens done in mathematics. You say, okay, for the time being, let us say that energy and mass is the same. Let's assume that for a minute. But the assumption has to be proven. And so then theoretical physics and all these very intelligent quantum mechanics people and so on, they prove it. They prove. And so similarly, when you have an equation, the equation is an assumption for the time being until you understand what it is. Then when you go into the analysis of the assumption, then you can prove the assumption. Here the Nayayika never proves it. It just keeps on doing the assumptions only. That Ishvara has no mind and the creation has to be done with a mind, but that's okay. We can just figure it out. Somehow it happens. This kind of vagueness doesn't apply. And so therefore, we can say, due to your own contradictions and also the fact that you are taking fancy with some assumptions and so on, we tell you this is why you need the Shastra to tell us. You cannot figure it out on your own, and it is not proper for you to do that. Okay, all right. So now let's move on. So here, I think I may have mentioned it to you. In the Bhashya of Brahma Sutra by Adi Shankara, there are explanations of the Bhashya. There are commentaries on the Bhashya. And I think I mentioned it to you, out of many different commentaries, the one where our Advaita Sampradaya really values most highly is a commentary on the Bhashya called Ratna Prabha. And this was done by Sri Govindananda. And that is a sub-commentary on top of that. So there's like 3 or 4 levels. So this sub-commentary on Ratna Prabha is called Purnanandiya. Why? Because it was done by Purnananda Saraswati. This is a Vyakhyanam. And he's only done it for 4 sutras, not for 555 sutras. 4 sutras. And it is devoted to these kinds of analysis. He's gone into the details of it, and he has negated the Anumanam of Ishvara. And in fact, he feels very sorry for it. It's as though he is against Ishvara. So at the end, he writes a Mangala Sutra dedicated to his Ishta Devata, Sri Krishna, saying, please forgive me. You know very well that's not my intent, is to negate Ishvara. I am the very understanding of it. I just want to make sure that these funny ideas that people have, that the Shruti is not important, I just want to prove that. Okay. So now comes the important thing. The next important thing, which is, are we saying that reasoning is not important? Because you've been attacking reasoning, this Anumanam is not good, this Anumanam is not good, that Anumanam is not good, it is not solid, it is shaky, it is incomplete, it is conflicting. You're saying all of these things, so that means you are against Anumanam. So you're saying just believe in whatever the scriptures say, and you don't think about it, you don't reason it out, you don't use your own mind for it? No. So this is the other end. You see? So, one end is, and this is what now the interesting analysis will be. One end is you only rely on Anumanam, not on the Shastra. The other end is you only rely on Shastra, not the Anumanam. Both of these extremes we are not agreeing with. Both of them are not correct. So we will have an explanation of why, what is the situation. Because the Shruti itself says, please follow my instructions with your own reasoning. Atma Shrotavyaha. It is to be listened to. Shrotavyaha means Shruti Uktatvat. Shrutena Uktatvat Shrotavyaha means it should be listened to what the Shastra is saying. So because the Guru who is also talking about the Shastra is simply a mouthpiece for the Shastra. It should be listened to. It should be understood. Then the second one is Atma ba are mantavyaha. And then nididhyasitavyaha. Mantavyaha means what? Mantavya means you have to mentally chew on it. Don't just take it for granted, because that doesn't really help. I think Swami Maheshananji had pointed out that something that is eaten doesn't benefit you until you digest it. You cannot say, and this is what happens sometimes. You say, well, I know I have read the Bhagavad Gita 5 times and I can do Parayanam. First chapter, second chapter, third, all the 18 chapters I can know. But have you digested what that meaning is? Well, I don't have time to do that because I'm very fond of chanting the Gita. Or you can do Rudram. It takes about 19 minutes. Om Namo Bhagavate Rudraya Namans. You can just do that. And you are very good at the swaras and so on. Very good, excellent. But do you know what it means? No, I don't know what it means, but I think that they say that if I just chant it, that'll be very beneficial. Yes, it is beneficial. So for example, when you're very hungry and you eat something very quickly, at least the hunger is gone. Hunger is gone, but it has not yet benefited your whole body, because that can only happen when the food is digested. So the Shruti also says, Mantavya means that do mananam kuryat, means that use your mind. The Shruti itself is just saying, please use reasoning. But it says, Shruti mata tarka sandhiyatam. Shruti mata tarka, as in sadhana panchakam. Dustarkat vyatira, what something means, stay away from dustarka. What is dustarka? Dustarka means pure tarka, means only reasoning. Don't just do reasoning because you cannot figure it out on your own. You have to, this is why we say, please go to a guru. You cannot just read some books and say, I think, yeah, this is true, because the tarkas all are limited and they negate each other. The example given is that one of the most smartest scientists that were born was Einstein. And so before that, there were other scientists that came in. They had reasoned out, and then the Einstein came. But Einstein's theories are also need to be tweaked a little bit. There are some exceptions to it. So new tarkas, when they come in, they will negate the previous one. So you cannot just go on pure tarka. What you need to do is Shruti Mata Tarka. The Shruti says, please think it along these lines. Then you have to chew on it. Okay? So now there is a very good discussion. So I think we have enough time to do that. Shankara now explains this topic of Shruti Mata Tarka. See, he's saying that do neither go to this extreme nor go to that extreme. You have to consider both of the aspects of it, and let me tell you how to do that. So, in order to do it, Adi Shankara has brought out beautifully the contrast between Karma Kanda of Veda and Jnana Kanda of Veda. Karma Kanda is the portion dealing with the rituals of Vedas, and Jnana Kanda is the portion dealing with the understanding of Ishvara. One is submission to Ishvara, the other one is an understanding of Ishvara. So Purva Paksha, not Purva Paksha, the Purva Bhaga and Uttara Bhaga are called Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. So he gives a contrast in those. And so we will finish our discussion with this contrast. So listen to this now. He says in Karma Kanda, Tarka is not very important. Reasoning is not important. It has a very limited role. The procedures of doing things are important. How to perform the ritual is important. Whether you need to pour ghee first, or water first, or milk first, is the right procedure. You have to learn that. So there is a knowledge for learning. And if you don't know it, then you rely on the priest to do it. Okay, so this is number one. Then the main thing is the performance of the ritual. The knowledge of the ritual does not produce the result. The actual performance of the ritual will produce result in the future, not right away. Like for example, the rituals for couples that don't have any children. They have tried for a couple of years and no child is coming, and so they are frustrated, and so they instead of going into IVF and all these surrogates and so on, you can try doing some rituals first. And there are putra kama ishti. So putra or putri, either one, there is an ishti for that. There is a ritual for that. And so you have to perform that. That doesn't mean that the woman who is performing with her husband at the temple will immediately get pregnant as soon as she gets up. No, that's going to happen later. So similarly, they say that Swarga Kama Yajeta, that if you want to go to heaven, then please do the following ishtis. Now, you are not ready to go to heaven right away because you still have mortgage to pay for your home. Your wife and children depend on you. If you immediately do the yajna and you go to heaven, that means you disappear. Will anybody do it? No. So here in Karma Kanda, what is important is not tarka is not involved very much. A little bit of tarka is there, that you have to keep the flame going. That makes sense. You don't let the flame burn out. That makes sense. So there is some tarka involved with that. And so, but not much. Mostly it is procedures followed by implementation. So this is what is called karmakandasya sadhya vishayatvat karma pradhana. Karmakandasya sadhya vishayatvat karma pradhana. Karma pradhana means it is mostly involved with karma. This is why it is called karma kanda. And why? Because it is sadhya vishaya. It is yet to be established. To be established is called sadhya. Already established is called siddha. So it is not siddhatvat, it is sadhyatvat. The vishaya of it is sadhyatvat karma pradhana. Now, supposing moksha is to be produced. So look at this. This is an interesting thing, important thing to see. Moksha, we are moksha ichu. Moksha ichu means that we want to be completely free of samsara. We don't want anything to bother us. Nothing. This is called moksha, mukti. So now we say, we are moksha, we are mumukshu. We use the same reasoning as karmakanda, that this moksha will come in the future. It's an event in the future, and if I implement my study properly, then I will gain moksha later. Shankara says this is a mistake. This is a very important discussion, really. I mean, we are just briefly looking at it, but it encompasses the way things are taught, even in India. In India, not even in India, in India where we are studying Vedanta and so on, how people think and so on. So they think that moksha is a future event. So what does it mean? It means first you study. I mean, this is what our thinking is. So I just want to make sure that you are very clear about it. This is an important point. Okay, because even the students of Vedanta, we think like that. How do we think like that? What is a mistake? What we think is that we have to study Vedanta, and so we do Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. First you have to see what is being said. This is Shravanam. Then you have to think about it, and then you remove some of the doubts from it, which is called Nididhyasanam. And so once it is done, then the moksha will come at a future time. So that means that there is a certain process involved of gaining moksha which will come in the future. It's like implementing it. It's just like, for example, you study a recipe for a new dish. That you have to put some turmeric, and then you put salt and a little bit of this, and then you have to put ghee and so on, and then you can put some vegetables and you cook it for a while. This is the recipe. And when sometimes it is given on television these days and so on, you say, wow, that is a nice recipe. Really? Do you know it? Yes, I know exactly. 1 minute of this, and then after that you fry it, and then you put the vegetables in, and then you let it sit. You put the lid on top of it. I know exactly what the recipe is, but you haven't eaten, you haven't prepared it yet, and let alone enjoy it. So you haven't prepared, and so now there is a question of implementation. You have to cut the vegetables, you have to buy them, make sure you have all the spices. This is what often happens. You find a new recipe and you say, oops, I'm missing this ingredient. I better go to the Indian store and buy that. So you have to do all of that, and then at the end of that, you make the dish, and hopefully it has got enough salt and it is tasty and you enjoy it. So similarly, our view is that I have to learn exactly what the recipe of moksha is. That there is Ishvara, there is Jiva, and then we are there Panchakosha Viveka. I am not the body, I am not the mind. This is what the Shastra is saying. Yeah, okay, I understand, and so on. All right, now what? Now, as we said that in the quiz, so Tatastha Lakshana and Swarupa Lakshana, and how do I translate that into my life? And then slowly, 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 I will do that. And I have to do something. What do you have to do? I have to implement it. And this is often exactly what our experience is. That for a while in the classes, things look pretty clear. But as soon as I get out, you know, I have to deal with the world, which is a different world. Here, the Ishvara is present in everything, but you go to work and your people are yelling at you, your boss is mad at you, and so on. It's as though he's never heard of Ishvara. Wish he was also Vedantin, but he's not. And so there is a secular life outside of this. This is the feeling that I get. And Swami Paramarthananda made a beautiful, beautiful statement. It is exactly what Swami Dayananda used to say. It's like saying, I know I am Brahman. How do you know you're Brahman? Because I've been studying this. I've been studying this for a while, and now it is becoming very clear that I'm Brahman. Because there's only one reality, and that is Brahman. And then I also, my consciousness is also Brahman. Okay? This is what I know. Okay. But what I want to know is how to become Brahman. So they look at the conflict in this. I know I am Brahman, but I don't know how to become Brahman. If becoming Brahman is all pervasive, which means you also. Do you say you know it? Yes, I know it. Okay, then why do you say you have to become it? You know what it really means? You are just saying you know it, but you don't know it. And this was a very frequent discussion in our PRC course where people will say, Swamiji, everything you say makes a lot of sense to me. And it is very clear. Yes, I understand it. But it's not doing anything for me. So it's as though now I have to do some sadhana. I have to sit down and I have to now do some meditation and recall. Then what is it that I have to recall? I scratch my face. Oh, yeah, that I am unborn. Yeah, that's right. So I'm unborn, unborn, unborn. Pretty soon you have to say, what is for breakfast? I'm very hungry. So the unborn thing is gone. So Adi Shankara says, in Vedanta, the understanding is the goal. It is not a procedure like in the Karma Kanda that you have to do later. So Swami Dayananda used to say this so well. He says, in Vedanta, there is nothing to be done. There is something to be known. Like, for example, in the case of, let's say, you want to be a car mechanic. You find out there's a lot of money in being a car mechanic, and you're sort of inclined to do this anyway. So you look at a brand new car with new technology and all of these kinds of things. These days, the car mechanics' life is very different. There's so much, what is it, hundreds of computers, and you have to now figure out exactly software, debugging. So you know all of this and so on and so forth. But then if you show up on the job and you don't know exactly how to implement it, you'll be fired. So you have to slowly learn how to implement what you have learned. So this is something where understanding is important, but doing it is even more important. Not in Vedanta. Then what to do? I'm in a very tough spot. You're saying there is nothing to be done. I cannot do anything. And I still don't feel that I am Brahman. Like Shruti says, I am Brahman. I don't feel that I am Brahman. So what am I supposed to do? And shouldn't I be doing something? The Vedanta says, Adi Shankara says, no. You cannot do anything. Then what? You have to think some more. You have to try to understand it again. And when you do, so if you want to call it doing, sure, if that's, we'll agree with you. But vichara is the way to understand. You don't have to physically do anything. You don't have to, you cannot. But what you have to do is that the things that are somewhat clear to you and somewhat not, you have to increase the understanding component of it a bit more. And this will happen to you. You will see that as you understand it, how do you understand it more? By repeated exposure to it. If you want to call it doing, sure, that is doing. But it's not the physical doing. It's not a future event. It is the event right now. So this is where we say that Shruti, Yukti and Anubhava, all three are important. And so you have to understand what the Shruti is saying. Then you have to do Mananam on top of that. This is where Anumanam comes in. Shruti Mata Tarka Anusandhiyata. So own that up. Chew on it. And then Anubhava is important as a pramana. Anubhava means that how you look at yourself and how your experience, if you can call it experience. Why? Because my current experience is that I am very limited. I am very small. helpless, I'm inadequate, and I am on the way to being obliterated eventually. This is my anubhava of samsara. This is called samsara anubhava. Then Vedanta moksha anubhava is just the opposite of that. That I'm shantaha, that I'm purna, I have samatvam. If some good things happen to me, I see that it is not me, it is something happening. Something bad thing happens to me, I can see that is happening in my mind, but not because I am aware of that. I'm different from it. Samatvam, purnatvam, amaratvam. All those kinds of gunas is the anubhava. And so the samsara bhava is to be understood now, not later. And if I don't understand it, then I have to keep looking at it as a vichara, as a thought. Why is it that I'm not doing it? So it's very different from karma kanda. So, in conclusion, therefore, we say that tarka is not all-encompassing, because, as we saw earlier, you do not have vyapti jnanam. You don't have a personal experience. It is not like tarka, it's not like whenever there is smoke, there is a smoke in the forest. It's not like that. Because smoke in the forest means that you have a firm conviction, not conviction, knowledge, that smoke can only come out of fire. You don't have that. It's not possible for you to know that. So the Shruti has to give you that information. Then you use the tarka for it. And so on that side, tarka alone is not resorted to. And on the other side, it is not like Purva Mimamsa, Karma Kanda, where Shruti is important but tarka has no place in it. Don't think about it. Just accept it. And that's okay if you want to go to Swarga, or if you wanted to have children in this life. Or, for example, sometimes they say that you can create rain. And it has to be done very right. I think I told you this. This is Swami Viditatmananda had told us this. So, Swamiji had attended a sthapanam of a new temple. And the new temple, which is done with Purna Kunda and Purna Kanda, everything is done very properly. And if you do everything totally properly, there is a mirror which is there as a sakshi. And they say that if you follow everything to the T, don't make any mistakes about how the bricks are laid out and what is on the Purva side and what is on the Paschima side and all that, and you now finish the whole thing, this mirror will break. Automatically, you'll just shatter by itself. Swami Viditatmananda said, I saw that with my own eyes. He was actually attending something that with Swami Dayanandji on the sthapanam of a new temple. And he was there towards the end of it. The mirror broke. So it can be done. It is exactly done. So that means that something does. So similarly, the rains can be produced, but you have to do something. This is karma kanda. This is a purva mimamsa. Unlike that, there is nothing to be done because moksha is not a future event, it is now. And if it is not now, then you keep learning about it, and at some point in time it becomes a now. So the travel is not any physical travel, but it is just the waking up from it as we known before. So with that, Adi Shankara's commentary on the second sutra is now over. And he didn't have to do this, but he decided that in order to clarify the role of Shastra in the Brahma Sutra, he is going to establish a Purva Paksha and then answer the Purva Paksha, destroy the Purva Paksha, so that there is clarity in everybody's mind on how to proceed further. So he did that. And so with that, and this was pointed out not only by Shankara, but also the commentators on the Bhashya, finally by Purnananda Saraswati. Beautiful. So that's now over. And so what we will do is, we will go very briefly into the last portion of the second sutra, which is a conclusion. So as you know, I said already that first there was a general analysis, then a word analysis, and now a conclusion. And this will take us only a few minutes of next class, and I think that we can then start on the third sutra. So with that, I close the class, and also an announcement that I will make. Let me finish the prayers, and then I will make an announcement about the next class. So let's finish the last 5 verses of Dakshinamurti Stotra. Om Rahu Grasta Divankarendu Sadrisho Maya Samachadinat Sanmatra Karanopasamharanato Yo Bhut Sushuptaf Puman Pragaswap Samiti Prabodha Samaye Swap Yah Pratyabhigyayate Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Balyadishvapi Jagradadishu Tatha Sarvasvavasthasvapi Vyavrittasvanuvartamanamahamityantaspurantam Sada Swatmanam Prakatikaroti Bhajatam Yo Mudraya Bhadraya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Vishwam Pashyati Karyakaranataya Swaswami Sambandataha Shishyacharyataya Tathaiva Pitruputratyaatmana Bhedataha Swapne Jagrati Vaya Esha Purusho Maya Paribhramitaha Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Bhurambhamsya Nalo Nilo Ambaramaharnartho Himamshuh Puman Ityabhati Characharatmakamidam Yasyaiva Murtyashtakam Nanyat Kinchina Vidyate Vimrishatam Yasmat Parasmat Vibhoho Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye Sarvatmatvamiti Sputi Kritamidam Yasmadamushminstave Tenasya Shravanat Tadarthamananat Dhyanat cha Sankirtanat Sarvatmatvamahavibhuti Sahitam Syadishwaratvam Swataha Siddhyetat punarashtadha parinatam Chaishwaryam avyahatam Ashubhani nirachashte tanoti shubhasantatim smriti matrena yat pumsam brahmatan mangalam param ati kalyana rupatvat nitya kalyana samshrayat smartranam varadatvat cha brahmatan mangalam viduhu. ओंकारश्चाथ शब्दश्च द्वावेतौ ब्रह्मणः पुरा कंठं भित्त्वा विनिर्यातौ तस्मान्माङ्गलिकौ बुभौ ओमथ 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 असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति 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 हरिः ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. So, a brief announcement. Next Saturday, the 24th of July, is Guru Purnima Day. And in the study of Vedanta, it occupies an important place. Both the Mahashivaratri and also the Guru Purnima are considered to be worth pausing and celebrating. So we will do that. So I was thinking over it. I've decided to do the following. First of all, on the Gita class, just to give you an idea, I know some of you don't attend the Gita class. I'm going to finish the Gita class and start the Kaivalya Upanishad on the 7th of August. And so I need all the classes to finish chapter 8 of the Gita. So next Saturday, I'm going to keep the Gita class as is, which is from 10 to 11, 11:15 or so. No changes in that. But what I'd like to do is that we will celebrate Guru Purnima in place of the Brahma Sutra class. Okay? So please make a note. I will send you an email to confirm this. There will be no Brahma Sutra class per se, but I very much hope that you can join us at 9 o'clock West Coast time, California time, for a 45-minute celebration of Guru Purnima. And so it will be from 9 to 9:45, and we will begin by chanting the Guru Stotram that I think many of you already know. I think that we have it on our, most of you already know it, but if we have it on our website, I'll make a note of it. So we will all chant it together, which is very traditional. And then I will give some general remarks for about half hour or so until about 9:45. Then the session will be over, and after a break to switch over to Gita, we will start the Gita class at 10 o'clock. So no Brahma Sutra class at 8. We will begin the Guru Purnima session, which is common to all of that. I will also invite the ones who are attending the Tuesday night class to it. And so we will have a short ceremony of the Guru Purnima, and then we will switch over to the Gita class. So that's the plan for next week. And the week after that, we'll resume our normal schedule. Okay? Let me see if you had any questions. Good. Good to see you all. Wonderful. And I don't see any questions per se. Of course, you have any issues, any questions, then please send me an email, as some of you do, and so I will correspond you with that. And for this class, then we will hopefully see you next week for the Guru Purnima, and then, of course, following it up 2 weeks from now with the regular study of the Brahma Sutra. So, with that, I close the class. Thank you. Om.